tuning in the sun. This is TFM. Get ready to rock. From AM to PM. Come on. Let's talk.
Presenting TFM. The most happening music, the most important news, and most importantly, your views. At Times of Oman radio station. TFM. Let's talk.
Live on TFM and the TFM Facebook page. This is the live feed of Ttv. Let's talk.
Hello and welcome to The Outline. These are the breaking news stories. The Ministry of Health today announced the registration of 6 new COVID-19 deaths in Oman. The death toll has now touched 224 in Oman due to the virus so far, the officials at the ministry informed. They have also extended their deepest condolences to the families of the deceased. The Ministry of Health announced the registration of 1,262 new COVID-19 cases in Oman on Tuesday. Amongst the new cases, 294 are non-Omanis and 968 are Omanis. The total cases in the country has now touched 48,997, which includes 31,000 recoveries and 224 deaths according to Ministry of Health. The ministry has urged everyone to adhere to social distancing instructions issued by the Supreme Committee and the Ministry of Health, as well as staying at home and not going out unless necessary. Those were the COVID-19 updates. We'll be taking a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to The Outline. The Ministry of Regional Municipalities and Water Resources has denied what is being circulated on social media about the closure of tailoring shops. An official from the Ministry of Regional Municipalities and Water Resources spoke exclusively to Times of Oman. The Ministry of Municipalities and Water Resources denies what is being circulated through an audio recording of one of the citizens that workers in sewing shops have been notified that sewing shops will be closed on 17 July 2020 and they must finish sewing work before this date, stressing that the decision to reopen and close commercial and industrial establishments is the call of the Supreme Committee in charge of dealing with COVID-19. An Omani company has won millions of riyals as damage from Spanish football club Real Madrid after the Omani Supreme Court issued its final ruling. The Omani company, which had entered into an agreement to organize the Legends matches between old Real Madrid stars on one hand and old Barcelona stars on the others, obtained the final ruling in June 2020 from the Supreme Court after a 5-year court battle. The case pertained to the cancellation of the match due to breach of the agreement by Real Madrid. The Omani Zan company was the organizer of the match, which was scheduled to be played on March 14, 2014. The company had filed a lawsuit in 2015 claiming financial compensation on account of losses it suffered due to Real Madrid's lack of commitment to the agreement signed. The Sultanate Supreme Court upheld the appeal of Omani Zan company against Real Madrid management. Saeed Al-Shabibi, the owner of the organizing committee, said that in coming times he will reveal documents that will expose the full extent of manipulation by these parties. Al-Shabibi also said, the company struggled to obtain its right from Real Madrid club, but there are other local parties who will also be prosecuted who were involved in this case. The aim of this match was to promote sports tourism in the Sultanate. A 22-year-old infant recovered from COVID-19 in South Al-Sharqiya Governorate on Sunday, 5th July 2020. An official at Jalan Bani Bu Hassan Hospital in South Al-Sharqiya said to Times of Oman, on Sunday, a 22-day-old infant recovered after he was tested positive for coronavirus in the Wilayat of Jalan Bani Bu Hassan. The baby was infected when he was 8 days old and has now recovered after 14 days of treatment. They added, the baby was infected by his mother, but both have recovered and are in good health. The SAS Accelerator for Cybersecurity's first cohort concluded on Monday with a virtual demo day. The event was organized by the Ministry of Technology and Communications through its SAS Centre for Entrepreneurship and in partnership with the UK Oman Digital Hub, Cylon and the Oman Technology Fund. The program was the first cybersecurity early-stage accelerator in the Middle East and North Africa region and attracted 55 applicants with their cybersecurity product ideas. Since February, the qualified teams have participated in intensive workshops and mentoring sessions, both in Oman and virtually with UK Cylon, to help them refine their product and business mode. The demo day even showcased the progress of these 8 teams who worked tirelessly on product ideas ranging from cybersecurity gamification to real-time security testing developer tool. The 8 ideas of the first cohort are Cyber Warrior, a game to raise cybersecurity awareness, Dark Sniper, a machine learning behavior detection product, Cryptic Chains, a tool that uses blockchain technology to strengthen the security in data management record systems, USafe, a software that simplifies the assessment of security breaches in companies' networks by using visualization and attack graphics, Octopus, a risk management system using built-in customizable per vendor templates, Hidden Power, a tool that uses blockchain to not only track shipping more efficiently but also add an additional layer of security, DataBoat, a locally produced SIEM solution, and Night Owl, a real-time security testing developer tool. Those were the news stories. We'll take a short commercial break and we'll be back with our guests on Outline today. Welcome back to the Outline. We have a very interesting topic that we're talking about. We're talking about the mental impact of COVID-19. We're of course joined by 3 experts. We have Ms. Anuya Phule, who is a clinical psychotherapist at Hatat Polyclinic. We have Dr. Nuhaila Al-Rawahi, who is an educational psychologist. And we have Ms. Masrat Sheikh, who is a mindfulness educator. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Let me start with Ms. Phule. Ms. Phule, can I ask you, how long have you been practicing?
I have been practicing in Oman since 2006 to be precise, and presently I'm working with Hatat Polyclinic.
And what about you, Ms. Masra?
I came with Anuya in 2006.
So you started together?
We started together, yes.
And you're on the show again together?
Yes, after a very long time.
All right, Dr. Nuhaila, tell me, what is it that you enjoy the most about your profession?
So before I moved to Oman, I was actually working in UK as an educational psychologist, and they're a little bit more ahead in terms of this field. So there's a lot of policies, a lot of parameters and frameworks in place. So one of the things that I do enjoy is when I moved back home is, although at the beginning what I struggled with was the lack of frameworks that were in place, it actually boosted creativity and autonomy, and it released me from some of the statutory work that I was doing while I was in the UK to do the meatier stuff, to give families and schools and parents a lot more of my time.
Right. All right, so let's dive straight into the topic. Ms. Phule, let me ask you the first question. Tell me, broadly speaking, what has been the effects of the COVID on the mental health of people?
Most definitely, the COVID-19 has had multiple effects on the psychological and mental health of people. To start with, it has had financial, social, and medical as well as psychological effects on people. Demographically speaking, we can categorize people who were affected by this pandemic differently due to their age groups. If we look at the elders who are normally used to socialize with their peer groups in maybe mosques mosques or churches or temples. They were utterly isolated, and this caused a lot of restlessness, anxiety in the elderlies who have never seen or experienced anything like this before. And there is this middle age group who are also the bread earners, who had challenges from every angle. It was job insecurity, it was financial insecurity, it was being the pillar of support for the family members themselves, and going out there into I would say, battlefield, to work and to do grocery shopping and coming back home and keeping their family safe. So this was the category who was affected the most, I would say, and they suffered definitely sleep disturbances, appetite disturbances, changes in moods as well, aggression or agitation. Children and teens had their own set of challenges in these times, because they were removed from their normative way of living, that is school and playgrounds and going out. So initially they experienced a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions, curiosity, but it is up to the parents and the middle age population to put it at rest, to explain to them how to deal with it. On the other side is people who are already having psychological issues, predominantly who are already diagnosed with psychological issues. Now here is where their challenges really increased, because they were already going through anxiety disorders, depression, panic disorders, OCD, obsessive compulsive, or what we would say even health anxiety. Now, these were the people who really found it very stressful, because they couldn't really reach out to get help from their counselors or to get prescriptions even in these times. And their fears actually exacerbated during these times. And those were the people who really went through a lot. And of course, in the end, families who lost loved ones due to COVID-19. They are going through their own traumatized grieving process, which is not the normal grieving process. And I guess they require all the support and mental health that we can provide.
Yes, that's definitely unimaginable. And Dr. Nuhaila, as Ms. Foley was saying, there are so many restrictions that have been imposed on people. One of the main things is staying at home or restricting movement. So a lot of people are not comfortable with the idea of always staying at home. Initially, it might sound relaxing, but eventually people tend to kind of get bored of it. What do you have to say about that? How do you think people are coping with that bit?
Yeah, I think any change for most of us or all of us is something that we don't like. It's an uncomfortable type of feeling, but in human nature, we're really good at adapting. Some of us take longer than others. I think what has happened is that with the change, with a lot of us having to work from home, we've had to, and we've been forced to look at our simple things like our day and our routines, and reprioritize a lot of what we do and how we do. So things have either moved up the list or completely off the list. I think also a lot of that time that being at home has allowed people to revisit and reevaluate and maybe even redefine their purpose. What that is, because it's not just being at home. Your work tasks may have changed because of the COVID situation as well. So there's a lot of different aspects of that have touched on people in different ways. Some people have really enjoyed it. I, for one, absolutely love being at home. No desire to rush back. But I have colleagues that I work with that are finding being at home all the time extremely difficult. We vary in the way we understand the situation. Some people are their fears and their anxieties are elevated more so than others. Others have a more pragmatic view of it. If I stay at home and I follow what is asked, all the protocols, then I'm safe. And then obviously you will get those that perhaps don't understand the magnitude of COVID and the risks, or are just rebellious in nature. So I think because there's so many differences in all of us, we're all coping with being at home in different ways. I guess some of us have taken to baking. I mean, there seems to be an influx and a rise
hobbies.
on Instagram
And drawing.
with all these baking and so forth. Can you hear me all right?
Clearly.
Yeah, and others have taken to do other things. I've had really good conversations even with my sister where it stresses her out, where people feel like they must be utilizing this time to do something very productive, and she always says, I wish somebody would actually say it's okay if that's what you choose, is just to do nothing. If you are happy in that nothingness at home and you're just kind of coasting and you're okay, that's the most important. I think that the mental health at the forefront is the most important thing, and trying to adjust with the new routine and settling into it, and managing your stress levels is the most important thing here and for now.
And it's okay to take a
But
break.
not
That's
to
what a lot
forget,
of people...
just to add, not to forget that
Yes.
times are changing, right? So it's not once you adapt, that's it. The COVID story and the narrative keeps changing as the days go past and goes by. So
You have to be flexible.
the things that we need to do to change, how we adapt will need to also change. So there's a lot of moving parts.
And it's okay to, as you said, it's okay to sometimes not do anything, because I've read that researchers actually say that if you take a break for some time, it boosts your creativity later. So it's all right.
Yes,
Yes, this is
indeed.
right.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Masrat, as Dr. Nohaila was saying, she likes to stay at home. She has no complaints. So there are two types of people, extroverts and introverts. Well, 16 other personality types, but let's just talk about extroverts and introverts. Do you think this time is actually better for introverts because they get to stay in without, and no questions asked?
Okay, so you're asking question about me because I'm an introvert.
Well, we got to learn something new then. That makes two of you.
So yeah, in a way. So being at home initially, it's been like, you're not confined inside quarters with your family, but also closed inside with yourself a lot. And it takes practice, I think, to learn how to be with, one's own mind without driving yourself nuts. So, but over this time, like, I have also been reflecting on what it means to stay home and how to find some space inside you when the options of going out are limited. So we just look at it from this perspective that, yes, home is a physical space, but home is also a mental and emotional space where we feel at ease. We rush outside to find something to feel satisfied, but if home is the space inside us that we create for ourselves, and if it's spacious enough, we do not have the need to go looking for much out. And I think that is the most important coping strategy that's worked for me here.
That's good to know. That's good to know. All right, so the conversation is just getting interesting, but we'll take a quick commercial break and we'll get right back. Welcome back. So we were just talking about the impact of COVID-19 on mental health. And Miss Anuya, we were discussing a lot of other things, but we're forgetting our children in this. I think they're also, you mentioned that the middle age group is affected a lot, but I believe children are also, this is absolutely new to them, and many of them don't know how to deal with this. And with everything going virtual, how do you think they're going to cope with it? Or how do you think parents should help them?
First of all, let me start on a positive note. There is something called as intelligence adaptational skills. That is, there are different intelligences, and one of them is adapting to the changing environment. And children are really good at it. We underestimate their strength. Actually, children, if the adults in the house help them and guide them to adapt to the changing environment in a very calm way, children are able to adapt. Initially, when children were at home and schools were shut down and they were not allowed to go out and play,
Right.
there was definitely restlessness and many questions from them and agitation. But in these times, when parents calmly just explain them that it's unprecedented and it is unpredictable, but giving them options how to entertain themselves at home and how to keep calm at home, and even allowing children to board. Now, in the last decade is the trend where parents and children were used to going out to the malls and going out to the parks, and the weekends were fully packed. But before that, in the 80s and 90s, this was not the trend, and children mostly used to be at home. And they were very creative, and they used to create things from whatever is available at home. And we have gone back to that, and allowing children to get bored and parents not to feel anxious about it, that let them get bored, and through that creativity takes place, and children learn to make tents at home, they learn to help in the kitchen, they make crafts, they play with the balloons, and they made their own way of playing and engaging. Also, to look at the brighter side, children are becoming more savvy at handling the
They
internet and
definitely are.
handling
Better than
the
all of us, I bet.
online classes. Exactly. And it feels so good for parents to see that they are engaging with their classmates and talking with their teachers. In fact, my own son, I feel, is more verbal online now when he talks to his teacher than he was in the class. So there are some positive changes which are taking place due to this. So we have to look at that. And the priority is that they are safe, they're away from harm, and they are in the comfort and protection of the home and their parents. So we can look at it that way. But there's one
There's always a
catch to
but.
this. It's just been 3 months. And if this continues for more than 6 months, there are definitely going to be some psychological, behavioral, and emotional changes in children, which we have to observe at that time and work around it during that time, because there's definitely less socialization. So how does it affect children? We have to observe that after 6 months and more, and then we can work around it.
But Ms. Foley, that I think you've put it very positively, and I appreciate that. Dr. Nuhaila, any other tips for parents during this time?
Yes, I would actually say I completely agree with everything that's just said, and I would just build on that. And that is around, after safety and ensuring that they have things to do when you're nurturing that creativity at home. I think it's really important for parents to monitor and regulate their anxieties and fears, because eventually, hopefully, inshallah, we'll all go back to normal life at some point, or whatever the new normal will be. And whether this is in another 3 months' time or in another 6 months' time, or whatever that time frame is, we don't want that time frame to be a traumatic one for the children, because otherwise they're going to be having to deal with these traumas. So yes, safety is always paramount. It's the foundation of everything. So we need their health and safety, but then we need to take those steps to ensure that the parents are not transferring that anxiety or that fear onto their children, and that we're ensuring above all that the children are happy. And I say this because when schools open in August, September, parents are a little bit more stressed out, because now they're juggling their work deadlines, and they're juggling all the children's online work, especially when the children in primary school, they actually have to put them on a laptop. They don't sit down for long enough alone, and they need to do a lot of supervision and almost be that teacher's assistant. And to do that along with everything else that needs to be done is quite difficult. So I guess my advice to parents here is, number one, just make sure that that home environment is still pleasant. Otherwise, the damage that you may be doing to that child and causing a trauma that is unintended might be developing for some of them. Because we don't want to look back and this is a traumatic situation for them more than it needs to be. So I would definitely say that's one of the things. But also, what was also said was about the play, and I think for parents and the lack of socializing. Now, all the children have access to games and Instagram and WhatsApp and whatnot. But when we're looking at children that are 2 and 3. The social interactions are really important for the development. So again, what was said, that we will know what those implications are on these children if we remain in this situation for too long. But some families I know have created small circles with other children, or if they're lucky enough, they have. And what I mean by that is with your one sibling with their child, for example, and they've made sure that they've not they've kept safe. They've taken all those precautions just to ensure that was in place. Yeah.
Right. So we were so since you said happiness is key, whether it's for children or adults, and Ms. Masrat, on that note, we're talking about children. One of the most fundamental things we teach children is sharing. But now, considering everything is virtual, it's not as simple as, oh, you've got a chocolate bar, why don't you split it and give it to your partner? So how do you teach them the idea of sharing?
Virtually, it will be like, a little hard to put that across. And I think it should come more from the family aspect, where parents take that up in the family to teach children, especially if they have siblings. So bringing that up into play with the siblings, sharing things with siblings, sharing things with family members, teaching more of kindness and compassion to children. I would say character education is important aspect over here. And I think we can take this time more to build up those core values in children. So I think when we invest a little bit of time as parents over there, that should help us out when it comes to sharing or even other values.
Right. Ms. Phule, now talking about children, adults, everyone, what are the symptoms that we should be looking out for?
Now, again, I would like to categorize where people who were predominantly going through psychological issues is where the family members or loved ones can really look out for symptoms like increased agitation or increased anxiety in the family member who is going through it. There would be disturbances in sleep and in appetite as well. There would be immense fluctuations in the moods of the person, and the relational aspect, the quality of relationship would also decline. So these are some of the symptoms that we have to look or observe with a family member who's already diagnosed with a psychological issue. Otherwise, I would say just observe that is the family member too obsessed or too occupied with listening to news and knowing every few hours what is going on with the COVID-19 situation. Such kind of occupation and such kind of obsession with this present situation can only trigger a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear in the person. So please just observe if any family member is watching too much of news, is following up too much on this pandemic situation. Please make them aware. please divert them, please help them to engage in some pleasurable or other activities as well. So these are some of the symptoms we can see, which are for personally my own clients who have approached me during this time. I have seen that because working at home is combining two separate environments together, that is the work environment and the home environment, which are supposed to be separate, has caused a lot of stress on the working class especially. And I have seen that individuals having panic attacks and heightened anxiety attacks in these situations. Engineers or architects, especially who like working in teams, are forced to work in an isolated way at home, which doesn't really help. It causes a lot of insecurity and errors in a working style as well, which causes added stress to them about the job security. So I would say just be supportive, just observe on these factors. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, Ms. Fule, you have. But as you said, it is important to keep an eye on your family members and make sure they're not overdoing watching news or doing something that brings them down. I wanted to ask you, say you do realize that someone is going downhill, is it okay to acknowledge the problem and have a heart-to-heart with them and tell them that, look, I do feel that you're going downhill, I do feel you're obsessing over the news or you're obsessing over the bad stories? How do you talk to them about this? Is it okay to acknowledge it? Would it bother them if they realize that they might be having depression?
Again, depends on the relationship, but so if it's husband and wife, it might cause a bit of friction. But really, it is a very good idea to acknowledge in a very non-judgmental way, in a very calm way, to just address to the issue and tell the family members that I feel you're excessively watching such news and it is causing changes in your moods. So why don't we and actively engage with the family member to distract them and to engage them in some other activity, like for us, we took out all the board games like Scrabble and Monopoly, which we have never played. And adults usually wean away from such games as they grow up in the rush of jobs and other responsibilities. So even if it's the adult member, you can just non-judgmentally approach them and make them aware you're doing this. And why don't we just go play this, or why don't we just read a book, or why don't we make something, like Dr. Nuhela said, let's bake together. So introducing the family member to the pleasure aspect is what we should do, maybe in an indirect way, direct way, however the person is accepting it.
The key here is to be non-judgmental.
Correct.
Right. Dr. Nuhaila, I'm going to take a question from the viewers here. Now, of course, it is important to stay fit and eat healthy. But do you think during this time people are turning to an active lifestyle, or is it the other way around?
I think, again, everybody is really different. I think if we're talking about the context of in Oman, when we first moved from work, the office to home, there was a lot of excitement, and I think there was a lot of, I can cook now, and I can exercise, and I can do all these things that I couldn't do before because I don't have the time. And I think for us, at least as Omanis who then had Ramadan a month after that, I think we went up. And then it kind of plateaued, and now we're met with the heat. Everybody's just really tired and fed up with the whole situation. But online, again, there's a lot of gyms out there that have taken to virtual
tutorials,
classes,
yes.
and so forth. We have the whole of YouTube as well. I don't think people are walking as much, but then I guess that's the heat. But those that were always fit and into exercise and being active, I think they found a way of maintaining that. And then there are those that have kind of let that go, and others who have decided to capitalize on this opportunity. I'm at home and I will start with something maybe very simple like yoga or Pilates and kind of build my way up. So there's a bit of everything that's happening.
The latter is definitely the way to go. Ms. Masrat, my next question would be to you. What can one do to get over this feeling of isolation?
I would say, now I'm taking a very mindfulness perspective here, Antara. Okay, so I would say come back to yourself, connect with yourself and take care of yourself so you have space to care for others. Know that without connecting with ourselves, we lose our way in the world. So when we feel connected with ourselves, there is no such dependence on others or this feeling of isolation. Mindfulness invites you to look deeper into your heart and mind and live with a quality of reverence, and remember that when relationships may come and go, but you can count on what endures within you. So no matter what happens, I would say frame your place in the world in terms of your deepest values. And I think that would be one of the strategies to meet with this isolation.
Excellent advice, Ms. Masrat. On that note, we'll take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back. Welcome back to the outline. Well, Ms. Masrat, we were just talking about how to handle self-isolation. Now, again, I would like to ask you another question. I know a lot of people say, be positive, be happy, it's okay, it's going to pass. Now, it's easier said than done for people who are going through a tough time. What practical solutions can you give someone to overcome this feeling?
Of course, I mean, at this time, we are looking at a lot of fear and anxiety and panic. So I'll say that these are the when you're feeling fearful, we have to know that fear is a healthy response to danger. If you're feeling overwhelmed and panicked, know that finding courage and skill to remain grounded in these times is a powerful tool that you can use. Also, when you're feeling afraid, it means that you have enough balance and wisdom to not freak out or cut yourself in denial or pretend you're okay. Right. So if you're feeling these feelings right now, I believe there is room to accept as normal. So these are the things that I would say to our audience, that it is okay to feel these feelings, and this is normal.
And it's okay to talk to people when you're not feeling okay. Can you tell me how talking to people makes things better?
That's right. I would say, when we talk to someone, it just helps you to come back and understand. You connect with the other person, and it helps you release those feelings. It helps you to understand their perspective. It helps you to come back, understand more compassion and kindness. And once you connect with other people, you're also connecting emotionally with them. So that just helps you to release and be with yourself, as well as, help them get more happier, because once you're talking to someone else, they are able to connect with you. And that's really helpful, I think.
Right. Ladies, I would like to share a short story, and I would like to take your opinion on that, because this is a little unconventional, and I would definitely want to know what you all have to say about that. So once I was covering a workshop on mental health, and unfortunately I couldn't stay for the entire thing. I had to leave. But before I left, there was a person, let's call her Sarah. So Sarah had a very different take on this, as we've already established that, when you talk to people, you do feel better. But Sarah here, this is what she said. She said that whenever she speaks to somebody, momentarily she feels better. But then again, she relapses as soon as the conversation is over. She also went on to tell me why, or not tell me, tell the audience why that would happen, because she felt that when she was able to handle her depression or her problems on her own, after her low phase was over, which would last, say, 3 days, 5 days, 7 days sometimes, she would come out feeling more independent, like she didn't need to reach out to somebody, she didn't need a crying shoulder or a listening ear. What do you have to say about people who are like that? Ms. Phule, would you like to elaborate on this?
Right. So earlier you mentioned, Antra, about extroverts and introverts. And it seems like Sarah was an introvert, is an introvert. But
Right.
here is where, if she is going through depression, actually clinical depression,
Right.
is that giving her time to learn skills of how to relate to oneself, like Ms. Masra was saying right now, and how to cope with these feelings and thoughts of isolation on her own. There are these really negative and unhelpful thoughts which trigger in those days when she was feeling depressed or down. And there are methods to replace those thoughts with more helpful, realistic thoughts. For example, if Sarah feels, oh, I'm so lonely and what is the use? I don't have anybody to connect with, is where she can be helped with more realistic thoughts that this is just now. We come to the mindfulness perspective.
Right.
This is just for time being. This is temporary. And I know there are people out there who love me. It could be her family in India, or it could be just friends whom she can meet after some time or connect over social media. So this is very real, what you heard, Antra. And many people go through these ups and downs. And there is a boost of mood when they do interact with others, and when there is isolation, the mood goes down. So in therapy, we teach how to sustain and how to sustain basically this mood by yourself independently by changing your thoughts. And
So she still
that's
feels
what it is.
independent, as you said. So she still feels that, yes, I am in control. So that's something that is taught to her. Excellent.
Yes.
Dr. Nihaila, would you like to say something on this?
If I've understood the scenario properly, or accurately rather, it feels like Sarah has some sort of self-awareness. Now, sometimes our self-awareness is accurate and sometimes it's really off. I think in those cases, having a counseling psychologist that you are that is involved with your case or with your situation can help build you to a place of independence. So you might start off with seeing them once a week with the intention that over time it'll be, twice a month, for example, and so forth. And they're really good at supporting you with toolkits and strategies and understanding how your mind works, how you think determines how you behave, and it's a vicious circle. So I like the fact that in the story that she seems self-aware, and she also seems that she does want to get to a place of independence. So for me, that those things are quite clear, and anybody that's involved would need to support her. But I think we all need to be supported at some time. I don't think anybody can go through life without any support. So I wasn't too clear if in that scenario she was receiving support or not.
She did speak to her friends and family, but what she would complain is that whenever she did speak to somebody, it was just a conversation, and then that would make her feel better. But then as soon as the conversation was done, she would just relapse. And at the end of the time, the times that she didn't reach out to people, she actually came out feeling better about herself because she felt that she handled it on her own. So as Ms. Phule said, it was, if we could give her the sense of independence, maybe that could actually help her. And people like her.
So she's probably asking herself and challenging herself differently to how her family and friends are supporting her. So yes, they have conversations with her, and yes, she leaves feeling better. But there must be something about the content of that conversation that doesn't carry through. So what it seems like is when she's alone, she's probably analyzing that situation slightly differently, and maybe even getting to a point where she's challenging her belief system and doing a lot of what a counselor would do with you alone, and that's why it's working better for her.
Right. And Ms. Masrat, how do you approach this from a mindfulness aspect?
From a mindfulness aspect, Antara, I see that, we have in these times understood the importance of connection. So not just with this particular case, but if we overall look at it, it has become clear that perhaps, now more than ever, how important connection has become, and how it can nourish us, even reframe our perspective. I think it is important for us to see that. And if we have loved ones, we need to tell them today, how much do they mean to us? Connecting with others, taking joy in their happiness, appreciating them is a way to deepen our own happiness too. So in times like these, we call on our new ways of coming together. We need to know how we find words that will heal and unite others. So with this specific case that you're talking about, here appreciating, the family members appreciating her, involving her into their own happiness and joy might help her to connect back with the feelings. That's what I feel.
Right. Dr. Nuhaila, you mentioned something earlier where you said that the content of what Sarah receives is what is important. How important is it to speak to the right people? It's not just about speaking, it's also about reaching the right person.
I think that's important, very important, because we do have professionals out there. If you, for example, if you had a pain in your eye, you're not going to go to the dentist. You're going to go. So you choose your professional depending on what your issues are. And obviously, in Oman, we're quite a tight-knit group because there's only a few of us around. And usually when one of us can't help for whatever reason, if we're not the appropriate professional or that we're busy and so forth, we do make sure that we refer them on to somebody else that we know and that we trust. So involving the right person is paramount here.
Right. Ms. Fooley, so there is a guide that WHO has issued. Do you think this kind of a guide is going to help people to follow through?
Most definitely, because this is a very new and situation. WHO's manual and guide, which I did go through, gives a very generalized guidelines to how adults can handle children, and people can be towards other people who have COVID-19. So there's a very generalized guidelines how to behave and how to be in this situation. Most definitely, there are very useful tips in that guide. One is pertaining to children. Is to how to engage with them, how to talk to them in these times, and how to explain to them what is going on. Another is on families who are going through the challenges where a member is infected with COVID-19 and what challenges they are going through, and as a member of society, how to approach and be non-judgmental and not to separate or not to judge them. And I could completely relate to that, because in our own society, there was a family who went through this challenge where the person was infected, and what we could do as neighbors is just call them and ask them, do you need anything from grocery? Do you need any other help? Is what you can do. So WHO guideline gives a very humanistic, a very basic ways of being in these times, which helps a person to remain calm, to know what to do, and to basically avoid any chaos or panic. So it's quite good.
I think sometimes it just helps, even if you don't act on it, even if you just give a call and ask that, can I help you? That makes a difference. At least the person will feel like they have people to support them. That's very important. Yes, I agree, Ms. Pillai.
Yeah, empathy. Empathy is
Empathy.
so important in these times. Exactly. Just understanding, being in the other person's shoes and knowing what the child or the family members are going through in that family. And this brings us to being just pure human.
Being human,
And I think
absolutely.
this situation, yes, this situation has made us evolve into better us than ever before. Even though these are difficult times, but it is helping us to evolve to be stronger, more empathetic, more human, more basic than ever before.
And Ms. Masrat, would you like to tell us about any concerns that your patients or the people that you've spoken to have come up with? Of course, I understand if you want to keep the names confidential, just the scenarios.
And yeah, I mean, like we have heard it all. We have heard about job losses. We hear about death. We hear about relationships breaking up, sickness. It's about everything. But I think this year is more about survival. 2020 is all about how we survive, and I think this, it's just challenging. So what I would tell to people I meet and the people who would say is, as far as we survive this year, that's the hope I can give you right now.
Live through 2020. Dr.
Yes.
Nuhaila, there is something that I was reading which said that people in your profession, they suffer from something like compassion fatigue. You always have to empathize with people, sympathize with people, and that sometimes tends to have an effect on you. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I just make very clear, I'm an educational psychologist, so this question is really for clinical or counseling psychologists. But again, it's quite obvious in the words. Fatigue is when you're doing anything that's too much, you're overdoing it. And being healthy is about being balanced spiritually, mentally, physically. And that's where you want to get to. Clawing back to some of the comments that were said earlier, I think the rule of thumb is when it was mentioned that if somebody is becoming more obsessed or if somebody is developing different behaviors, regardless of whether it's they're becoming more anxious or more fearful or obsessed with the news, I think the rule of thumb there is if you are changing in any way, so you need to be mindful and self-aware to know what your baseline is. So if you see somebody in your family suddenly that behavior is changing and consistently changing, that's an alarm bell for you to kind of either have that one-to-one discussion with them or involve a professional.
Right. And Ms. Pule, how are you coping with the mechanisms now? How are you handling this personally, family, patients? How is this working out?
For me, it is the topmost priority is the safety. So the utmost, topmost priority is staying at home. My family consists of elderlies and children. So I have the whole demography here. So we really take care and give importance to not taking them out anywhere. And we have done that for the last 3 months to success. And what I have observed is in these 3 months, not a single family member has contracted any cold or any cough. So it is a proof that we actually pass on the virus to each other in social areas like malls or crowds. So utmost importance is we don't take anyone out. It is just us middle age people who go for grocery shopping, who go to work. And when we come back, we maintain utter hygiene. So that is the topmost. Secondly is we try to engage the young ones and the elder ones. Elder ones don't need to be engaged, but yeah, they are cut off where they used to go for walks and they are not able to go out anywhere. But how to engage them, engage the kids into play. And we are connected with our neighbors who also, as Dr. Nuhaila said, that people have made small groups. So we take care that we both maintain that hygiene and we maintain the protocol, and the children play with each other, and there are sanitizers everywhere. We take care, we wear masks and gloves whenever we go out, and we don't, after coming back home, that we don't directly touch our family members. The clothes are washed and are properly maintained. So we take care of this. Mental and emotionally, we see that we are maintaining some kind of conversation, having fun. We have movie nights, and we have brought the whole entertainment area in the house. So
You've
we
done
see
it
that
right.
we are engaged. Yeah, yes, we see that we are engaging and entertaining ourselves at home. So we don't miss out on
Right, Ms.
anything.
Sule. So you've given us the complete guidelines on how you've done it absolutely right, and the proof that no one in your family has been infected so far means you've got it right.
Yes.
Right. Ladies, that was a very interesting discussion, and on that note, I would like to thank you all for sharing all that you shared today, and definitely we hope to have you back again.
Thank you so
for
much.
having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anta.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Well, that's all for our episode today, but we'll be back tomorrow at the same time, so keep watching TTV.